Hello, thanks for joining me on the 6:15 primetime newscast in the English language on Canal International. My name is Gladys Ambodiba. Stay tuned for our major stories. Cameroon joins the rest of the world to celebrate World Tourism Day today with special focus on rethinking tourism for development, and this through education and jobs and tourism's impact on the planet and opportunities to grow more sustainably. And Newsroom took special interest on the role of decentralization on the tourism sector in Cameroon and some challenges. And a man who disappeared in broad daylight about 2 months ago in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, has been found dead in the Bankomo neighborhoods along the Douala-Yaoundé road. The young widow and the entire family have been in search for the young man since July 6. And only 6.3% of the allocated funds for the development of Cameroon by the African Development Bank between 2015 and 2022 have been granted, a disturbing percentage that has obliged the African Development Bank to present business opportunities for the private sector to grab within the next 8 years. They met today in Cameroon's economic city, Douala. Those were major stories. Stay tuned for developments. Hello, thanks for joining us once again. A man who disappeared in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, within the past 2 months, it has been discovered dead in the Bankomo neighborhoods found between the Douala-Yaoundé highway. The man disappeared on July 6, and his family has been in constant search until yesterday that his skeletons were discovered in the farmland in that neighborhood. Let's have the details with Hyacinth Shia.
They watch with heavy hearts the remains of their brother, friend and business colleague, Hassan Swaibu, who disappeared 2 months ago. The decomposed body discovered here at Bankomo, 22 kilometers from Yaoundé, along the National Road number 3, thanks to this lady who went farming. At about 9 a.m. yesterday, I went up to my farm to work. I saw something like a ball. I went closer. I saw teeth. I couldn't still understand, and then called for my neighbor. That is how together we discovered that it was a human body. We then rushed to the National Gendarmerie and informed them. At his briqueterie residence, it is a total mourning atmosphere. He left the house on July 6th to work as usual, but never returned. When leaving the house that day, he told me he would come back early so that we look for what to prepare as food for that day. I waited till 2 p.m. I tried calling to no avail. Even by 6 p.m., the number wasn't going through. I went to the center town where he worked. I was told he left at about 1 p.m. and then came back home, believing that he was on his business and will return home when he is done. I waited for days in vain and then informed the police. Asked if he had issues with anyone, the wife highlights calls in line with monetary transactions days before his disappearance. Some people called him on Monday. He went out under the rain. Same thing on Tuesday. He went out after a call, came back and told me money wasn't enough for the transaction. He later left the house at 8 a.m. That was the last time I saw my husband. The unfortunate situation left his currency exchange colleagues here at the central town with sleepless nights, who equally intensified the search physically and on social media. It was towards Ramadan. I came to the market and I was told Hassan had disappeared for days. We all launched a search, published his photos on Facebook. The Muslim community can only commit the action and the perpetrators to the hands of the Almighty. If he was destined to die this way, Then we thank God. He knows everything.
Vraiment, merci à Dieu.
And after a brief prayer this Tuesday at the Mbankomo Mosque, the remains of the 33
A sad story indeed. And Cameroon joins the global effort to fight against violence against children through the Inspire strategy. The focus of a capacity building session for national actors in the prevention and response to violence that opened in the nation's capital, Yaoundé, today. More on the story with Beatrice Ngamon.
The Inspire training program is a review of a set of strategy and approach that all stakeholders involved in the implementation of the protection of children against violence must adhere. They are the implementation and enforcement of laws, norms and values, safe environment, parents and caregivers support, income and economic strengthening, response and support services, education and life skills. The stakeholders in many countries are working to eliminate violence against children. Their efforts, though huge, are often not enough.
Children are the Cameroon of tomorrow. They will build our country, and we have to do everything to protect them. The government is already doing a lot, but we still need more to make everybody conscious and participate. This activity is extremely important because it comes to add to what the government is doing.
Coordination mechanisms are therefore essential, as no single sector can deliver the full intervention package, and no individual government can tackle the growing threat to its children that now transcends national border.
To help the government, for example, with the work on the Child Protection Code that the government is working on, you have to have the legal framework to be able to implement all these strategies and make sure that children are protected from violence.
Cameroon's engagement in the political machinery imperative.
They have to commit to what it means to be a pathfinding country. And basically it's about putting in place policies and practices and programs that will make sure that drives the agenda of child protection and violence against children in the continent.
Issues to be handled during the 3-day capacity building session and even after will continue with support to the civil society actors and the government.
It is a common phenomenon that is getting out of hand, the reckless driving of bike riders along the Collington market that is putting the lives of students and traders in danger. And the pains or this has resulted to several accidents recently in that stretch of road that is in the Collington market in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. High paints a picture of that area.
It appears like an action movie, but it is a daily reality here at the Collington market. Bike riders putting the lives of students in serious danger, loading about 4 to 6 of them on a single motorcycle and running at a reckless speed. A situation that leaves the market men and women wondering each day. This year, it is terrible. Their reckless actions have tripled. It seems they mean something catastrophic. We are just praying because it is too much, and if care is not taken, a lot will happen before the end of this term. And this is a market. Motorbikes cannot run in such a speed in a market. There are accidents here every day. Something must be done immediately. Even the traders and buyers cannot freely use the stretch of road at the time the students are going or returning from school. In the morning, midday, and by 5 p.m., when they are going or returning from school, one cannot even cross the road. Their speed is a threat to us. A bike can hit you down at every moment. Ironically enough, the students of Government Bilingual High School Collington applaud to such irresponsible and reckless manner of riding that put their lives hanging on a thread. I'm surprised that students love that. If you don't ride as such, they cannot mount on your bike. At times, you see 5 to 7 students on one bike, more than what a taxi carries. It is bad. In case of an accident, the casualties will be many. With the phenomenon getting out of control, the business operators, who double as parents, call on the authorities and forces of law and order to step in with stringent measures and rescue the lives of the children.
And 3 weeks into the new school year, some schools termed clandestine in Ambam in the south region of Cameroon still remain closed. But some parents are still hopeful that these schools will open their doors for their children to begin school. The administration in that area has insisted these school managements must comply to the regulations in order for their schools to go operational. The details in this report.
The administration in the Thames Valley Division is bent that all the private schools that were operating illegally in the area will not open their doors until they obtain the legal documents to function and meet other requirements. 10 of the schools that were declared clandestine still have their doors closed until date, 3 weeks after the resumption of classes for the new school year.
2
documents are required from the private school management. They include a statement on the creation and another statement on the opening of the school that must be submitted. It is with these documents that we can include the schools in the records in Ambam. If not, they don't exist.
Auquel cas il n'existe nulle part.
Most of these schools, without an authorization to function, almost have the same characteristics: filthy environment and lack of fence to ensure the security of children. Parents who have already paid fees to these clandestine schools have to be reimbursed, while hoping that the schools will reopen. If parents are still in doubt on which school to register their children, they should contact the administration to assist them. Some parents who had already made payments for fees for their children in these schools are now crying over spilled milk as the tuition fees are not refundable. The administration has urged these parents to register their children in other schools and has warned management of the clandestine schools to comply with the regulations in force.
And as Cameroon joins the international community to celebrate World Tourism Day this September 27, 2022, our newsroom took special interest on the role of decentralization in the improvement of tourism in Cameroon and its challenges and actors in the sector have called on the population of Douala to cultivate the habits of tourism. Stephanie Chen.
The prevalence of the COVID-19 pandemic amidst other challenges are known to have hampered the tourism sector of the world in general and Cameroon in particular. Thus, the theme, Rethink Tourism.
This pandemic has got a lot of bad effects on tourism. It was a lockdown and now we have to start anew. The first challenge, as I said, is to consider that many things have changed in the taste of the tourist, in the attitude of the welcoming populations, and then also the characteristics of the market. So in terms of tourism, we certainly face another factor, which is the tourism culture, which is totally absent in our context.
Gathered this September 27 on the occasion of World Tourism Day, tourism actors hammered on the need for the sector to be revived, an objective which entails the enforcement of decentralization.
It used to be the government, the Ministry of Tourism, a centralized government, but now with decentralization, each and every mayor, each and every president of a region can enhance is a policy that is appropriate to their context, a policy that is appropriate to the local realities, a policy that is appropriate to the needs, the local needs of the population.
We want to do now is to give the possibility of everyone to practice tourism. That's what we call inclusive tourism. And we want everybody to have a real benefit of the tourism at each level.
Showcasing a variety of homemade products, promoters of tourism encouraged Cameroonians to explore their own products. The 43rd edition of World Tourism Day. Actors in Cameroon look forward to building the tourism sector as a pillar of development in Cameroon.
And only 6.3% of the allocated funds by the African Development Bank for the development of Cameroon have so far been granted, a disturbing percentage that has obliged the African Development Bank to present new business opportunities for the private sector between 2023 and 2030. This was made known in Douala today during a meeting between the African Development Bank and the private sector, an occasion for the private sector to raise its challenges. The details in this report.
91% of individual private enterprises in Cameroon have limited business capital, and at a time when Cameroon is bent on implementing the import substitution policy by developing the agro-industrial sector, access to financing remains a major challenge.
Today, the system of our traditional bank is not possible to finance the long-term credit in our country.
The bank can only lend short-term, but really most meaningful projects require medium and most times long-term financing, especially the area we're trying to focus on now in terms of import substitution based on the agricultural sector. The private sector has no access to long-term financing.
Surprisingly, the African Development Bank reveals that only 100 billion francs CFA, that is, about 6.3% of 1,594 billion CFA francs allocated for development projects in Cameroon by the bank between 2015 and 2022 has been granted, a revelation that raises eyebrows.
The private sector in Cameroon apparently doesn't think or doesn't know that the bank can finance the private sector. I think that was clear now with the presentation we made, the discussion we had. They know
sort of guarantees that they have been asked all the time. It makes it impossible for businessmen to come up with it. Sometimes you probably need over 150% above and even more. You give a piece of land, you give your own insurance policy, you also give cash guarantees.
The African Development Bank's meeting with the private sector in Douala, September 27, 2022, is an occasion for the bank to present business opportunities for the private sector in areas like agriculture, energy, transport, health and education, with focus on crisis zones like the Northwest, Southwest and the Far North regions.
The selectivity will be the first criteria is impactful project which transform the life of Cameroonian when it comes to industrialization.
Good governance, human capital development and industrialization, according to the African Development Bank, are essential to the inclusive and sustainable growth of Cameroon within the next 8 years.
And it is that report that we wrap up this edition of the Primetime Newscast in English language on Canal International. The French edition will be yours at 7:50 p.m. with Alain Gislet Kanga. Up next is Debrief de l'Actualité with Lil Piaget. I'll be yours again same time tomorrow, God's willing. Bye-bye.